And as soon as I'm sure I've got an audio connection with everyone, we'll get started. Looks like I do. Okay, we're back on the matter of Doris Lafitte. Mr. Brown, you had an opportunity to speak to your client?
Yes.
All right. Anything that needs to be addressed before we begin taking proofs?
No.
I think I already took judicial notice of the file. So, Mr. Way, call your first witness. You're muted, Matt.
Sorry, I would call Miss Hukel.
All right, I'm going to mute. I believe that's Mr. Lafitte's phone. I'm going to mute it because I'm getting a lot of background noise in. Okay, Ms. Hukel, would you raise your right hand, please? You do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your full name and then spell it, please.
Kylie Hukel, Hukill.
Go ahead, Mr. Way.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hukel, you were the foster care worker for Doris Lafitte, is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you file the supplemental termination petition in this case?
I did.
At the time you filed it, was everything true to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, it was.
When was Doris removed from his parents?
About a year ago.
And what were the concerns at that time regarding the parents?
There was concerns of Doris being exposed to illicit activity, such as human trafficking.
What were the concerns for each parent that led to that, I guess, that wider concern?
Dad was not in the picture at the time of the removal. Doris was in his mother's care. And there were allegations that mom was staying at the Red Roof Inn here in Lansing, and Doris was not being supervised while illicit activities were going on.
Okay. After adjudication occurred, there was a dispositional hearing for each parent, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall when that took place?
I do not remember the date.
Okay, what was ordered of, let's start with the mother of Ms. Green. What was ordered of her at that time?
Parenting classes, drug screens, parenting times, individual therapy, and I believe, and proof of employment and proof of housing.
And let's start with the parenting classes. Was she referred for parenting classes?
She was. Go ahead. In April of 2020, I had referred her to Lifeways. She did not complete that. In July of 2020, I had referred her to Family Services and Children's Aid in Jackson, where mom says that she's staying. And I have spoke to the man that runs the parenting education, and she attended an intake, but has not attended since. Last I knew, she would be released from the program if she didn't go back again.
Okay. Has Ms. Green provided you with any proof that she's completed any parenting class?
She has not.
Okay. There's a reference in the petition to counseling. Did you make a referral in July of 2020 for her to participate in counseling?
I did.
And did she participate in counseling?
No, she was scheduled with a counselor here at Child and Family named Neil Perry. And last I had heard from her, she had appointments set up but never attended.
Did Ms. Green participate in any sort of drug screens?
She was set up for drug screening through AverHealth, but has not done any of them.
Are you aware of whether Ms. Green has stable housing?
I'm not. I had a home visit scheduled with her in July, and she failed to appear for that, and I have not scheduled one since. She says that she's staying in Jackson, but I've heard otherwise that she's maybe staying in Lansing. So I'm not sure if her actual location is Jackson or not.
Are you aware of whether she has any stable income?
She told me that she was getting unemployment because of COVID. She was laid off of her job. And I haven't received anything from that previous job or unemployment, so I'm not sure.
Ms. Green was also provided with parenting time, is that correct?
That is correct.
Was she consistent with supervised parenting time?
She was not.
When she would appear, how would visits go?
They were okay. Doris doesn't have a strong bond with her. He more or less refers to his foster parents as mom. When she would be here, she would be on her phone a lot. She would be FaceTiming someone. She brought her mother and maybe her brother a couple of times. And so they would interact with him. But a lot of times she just spent the time on her phone or changing his clothes. Never really interacting, playing age appropriate games or anything like that.
Were there any other services provided to Ms. Green or ordered of her that I missed?
She had a psychological evaluation, but that was in 2018.
Okay, and so she was also provided services through, I think it was an Ingham County case, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's for a separate child, correct?
Correct.
And do you know what happened with that case?
Yeah, the child, her rights were terminated and the child is now adopted.
Okay, and the Court of Appeals actually affirmed, upheld that termination, correct?
They did.
Has Ms. Green, in your opinion, alleviated any of the reasons that Doris came into care?
No.
Let's talk about Mr. Lafitte. Has Mr. Lafitte participated in parenting time?
He has participated in, I believe, 2, at the most 3 Zoom parenting times, but other than that, he has not.
Has he seen his son in person?
No.
And his parenting time was suspended back in July of 2020 until he got into contact with you, correct?
That is correct.
Was prior to July 28th, 2020, was it an issue, communication an issue with him?
Yes, it was. He often changes his phone number. I had a different phone number before this, and he actually just reached out to me today on a different phone number that I didn't have.
Have you been able to refer Mr. Lafitte to any sort of services at this point?
I have talked to Mr. Lafitte about services, but I have not been able to refer him to any. His communication is few and far between.
Has he provided proof of any drug screens or parenting classes or a psychological evaluation that's been ordered of him?
He has not. I had a conversation with him a couple months ago, and he asked me if I was allowed to ask him all of those questions.
And what was the conversation?
About like where he was living, what his employment was, what his address was, if I could go there. And he's just asked me if I was even allowed to ask him those questions and get that information.
Have you tried to talk to him about the services that he needs to participate in?
Yes, I have.
And what is
Let me
been a result of
let me
that?
stop you. Let me stop you for a minute. I just allowed someone in the room. I'm assuming this is the mother. It says Dee's iPhone.
I think so, Your Honor.
All right, looks like we've got video. Not sure we have audio yet. Ma'am, can you state your name?
Diamond Green.
All right, so that's Ms. Green. You may continue, Mr. Way.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hugo, how did the conversation go regarding when you talked to Mr. Lafitte about the services he would need to participate in?
I just stated that these were the services if he was willing to participate, and asked him to get in contact with me with where the best place would be to get the services set up. And Mr. Lafitte stated we would have a conversation about it, and then I never heard anything for several months about it.
Are you aware where Mr. Lafitte is living at this time?
Last I knew, when we had a conversation, all he told me was that he lives in Flint. I'm not sure of his address or anything like that.
Have you been able to go to a house to deem whether it's appropriate or not?
I have not.
Do you believe Mr. Lafitte has rectified any of the conditions that led to his son coming into care?
No, I do not.
What are your concerns with the parents at this point?
I'm still concerned of parenting skills, mental stability on both of them, and continued illicit drug use or activity. I'm not sure what all is going on because I haven't been able to be at anyone's house, but those are my continued concerns.
Where is Doris currently placed?
He is currently placed here in Lansing with an unrelated foster home.
Do you have any concerns with his care in that home?
I do not. Doris has actually really thrived in that home. When he first came into care, he was severely delayed. The home, and he has sickle cell. The home has been nothing but fantastic about setting up all medical appointments, making sure that he stays healthy, even with COVID. They have gotten him in physical therapy. They have gotten him in like an early head start for school. And they've also provided him with a speech therapist to get him all back on track for his age.
Have his parents participated in any of those, I guess, services to address his special needs?
No, I believe Mr. Lafitte, the dad, just found out about them today as he was a part of our Zoom parenting time that we had for the first time in several months.
Is Doris bonded to his foster home?
He is, and he also, his half sister lives in the home with him as well, and he has grown a significant bond with her.
Do you have an opinion as to what's in the best interest of Doris as it relates to his mother's and father's parental rights?
I believe it is in his best interest that the rights are terminated of mother and father.
Why do you believe that?
Because he has continued to grow in the home that he is in, and none of the issues due to the child coming into care have been rectified thus far.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further. I did mean to just address one point. I think we addressed it previously. There was a reference to the mother's previous psychological evaluation. And just from a stipulation point, we would stipulate that psychological evaluation, according to Dr. Lauder, may no longer be valid because of the time span between now and then, and because it was conducted on Ms. Green when she was a minor. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Kelly?
Have you been the caseworker the entire time this case has been pending before the court disposition?
I have not.
When did you come on board
I believe around April.
of this year?
Yep. Yeah.
What number caseworker are you?
I am not sure, but I only know of one worker before me who transferred the case to me, but I'm not sure who had it before that.
Okay. You'd made references to services for special needs for the child. Was mom made aware of those?
We've had family team meetings previously where mom knew about the services.
For the special needs for the child?
Yes, 2 of the services are in home at the foster home.
So was she available to go to those considering the COVID-19 activity that's been going on?
No, she's not.
How would she participate in those services?
Once she's been told about them, she didn't ask any more questions. Even today, she was reinformed of them and still didn't ask how they were going, what progress he has made, or anything like that.
Your Honor, I'd move to strike. That's completely non-responsive to my question.
You listen to his question, answer that question, please.
How was she supposed to be able to participate in those services if she's not allowed in the home?
She wouldn't be able to participate face-to-face with them due to COVID.
So how would she participate?
I'm not sure because she can't go to the foster home.
You made reference to Miss Green having a referral for counseling for a Neil Perry.
Yes,
An appointment was scheduled on November 5th of 2020. Are you familiar or not whether she attended that appointment?
last I talked to Neil, he had told me no.
Was there further appointments being scheduled?
At that time, I believe he was trying to get a hold of her and did not.
Does he have a good phone number for her?
Yes, I gave him several of them, or the one that I used to reach out to Miss Green with is the one that I gave him.
When's the last time you had contact with Miss Green?
Miss Green, I had contact with her today.
Okay, prior to today.
Last week or the week before.
Was that via phone or did you meet her in person?
Text message.
Okay. You indicate in your testimony that she was referred for a Lifeways services and did not attend. Isn't it true that she actually provided you paperwork that said, note, can I finish my question? Isn't it true that she's provided you paperwork that said there's no reason for her to have services there? She didn't qualify?
I did not receive any paperwork from her stating that from Lifeways.
Did you receive any paperwork from her in regard to Lifeways?
No, I have not.
Parenting class that you referred her to in July for Family Services and Children's Aid, is that parenting class geared towards children with special needs?
I'm not sure what the parenting class would be geared towards. She went for an intake on July 29th, but did not return after that. So I'm not sure.
The parenting time that she had, did you observe that?
Yes, I did.
Was it in person or over Zoom?
The past couple weeks have been in Zoom, but the previous ones were in person.
You know, how many were in person?
There's been quite a few since June till 3 weeks ago. I'm not sure of the exact number.
Did she attend all those parenting opportunities?
In person, no, she did not.
How many did she miss?
I would say that approximate number, she missed more than 5, either to oversleeping or last minute something happened to her car.
Okay. About how many visits was she offered?
She was offered 2 visits per week from June when we opened back up to in-person visits until we started the Zoom ones about 3 weeks ago.
So is it fair to say she attended a majority of the in-person visits?
For the most part, yes.
Have you viewed Miss Green's home?
I have not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Questions, Mr. Brown?
Yes, Ms. Hugo, when you questioned Mr. Lafitte on where he was living, your testimony was he indicated he was living in Flint.
That is correct.
Did you inquire, Mr. Lafitte, well, what's your address? Did you inquire?
I asked him where he was living and he said at his house. I asked him what his address was and he told me it was in Flint. And I just said I needed to know if the home was appropriate, and he had stated that he lives in Flint, and then proceeded to ask me if I could even ask him those questions.
Did you educate him that you were sure well within your responsibility to ask those questions?
Yes, I did.
And did you follow up and say, what's your address?
I did not after that. We continued to talk about services.
Okay. So he never flatly refused to give you his address, did he?
He never said, I'm not going to give you my address, correct?
Okay. You're aware that Mr. Lafitte has a head injury, correct?
I knew that he was in the hospital after being shot in the head. I didn't know there was an injury, like a traumatic brain injury after that.
Have you reviewed the entire file in this case?
Yeah.
Okay. And nothing in the entire file indicates that he has a traumatic brain injury from a wound that occurred a few years ago?
No, not that I'm aware of. I do know when we had a court hearing for him, I believe in July, he was in the hospital after being shot in the head.
His brain injury, according to my understanding, occurred long before that. From the onset of this case, he's had a brain injury. You're not aware of that?
No.
Would it be fair to maybe assume that if somebody's shot in the head, that they may have some limitations that prevent them from dealing with you like somebody would on a regular basis?
Sure, but even from April to July, when I believe what I was understood the injury happened, he still didn't participate previous to that. But sure, it could have from July on.
Okay. Do you think you could have been more forceful with him and asking some of those pertinent questions? Are you okay? Are you able to understand me? Did you ever push him to get those answers?
I did not. I've had a couple conversations with him, and he seemed like he was able to respond to me and seemed to understand those questions, but I did not do that, no.
Okay. Did you ever get any medical reports to determine the severity of his injury?
No.
So he may qualify for services or enhanced services under the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Sure. If he has that proof that he has a disability, then yes.
Did you ever talk with his parent or anybody in his home that he lives with to inquire? Is there something wrong with Mr. Lafitte that I can help with?
No, I do not know who Mr. Lafitte lives with.
Didn't he tell a previous worker he lived with his parents?
He did before, but to my understanding, he no longer lived there when I had a conversation with that worker.
So you were never able to talk with his parents to inquire any history with regard to Mr. Lafitte?
No.
Thank you, Judge. Nothing further.
Questions, Ms. McCluskey?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any redirect, Mr. Way? Mr. Way says no.
No, Your Honor, sorry, I was having trouble clicking the mute button. And that completes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Any presentation, Mr. Kelly?
Your Honor, I'd call my client, Miss Green.
Ms. Green, can you hear me?
Yes.
I need you to raise your right hand, please. You do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your full name, please.
Diamond Green.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Miss Green, how old are you today?
I'm 19.
Okay. Now, there's testimony that you may have missed from the caseworker regarding some of the services she wanted you to be involved with. Some of it referred to, there's various services here, but I'll start with one of the first ones that said you were referred to counseling with a Neil Perry. Are you familiar with Mr. Perry?
Yes, just a little.
Okay. Did you have an appointment with him or actually meet with him?
I had an appointment with him.
Okay. Were you able to attend that appointment?
I wasn't, but we talked and we rescheduled.
Do you have the new appointment date?
That was just like, I want to say the ending of November.
Okay. The new appointment date was going to be the end of November last month?
Yes, but the everything got closed back down, so we couldn't do it in person. We were going to set up something for Zoom,
Okay.
and I haven't got back in touch with him since.
Okay. Has he reached out to you?
He have not. I've called. My caseworker stated to me that he was trying to reach out to me, so I got his info, and I reached out to him, and that was the only time I talked to him after the appointment in July.
And you don't have any missed calls or voicemails or text messages from him requesting that you contact him. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now there's mention to also in regards to a referral for Lifeway services, and they're claiming you did not attend it. Did you actually attend that?
I attended. I actually had a paper and gave it to one of my caseworkers. I'm not sure which one I had, but I got a paper after I attended the meeting. They said I did not qualify for Lifeways and they couldn't see me, and I gave the paper to my caseworker. I don't remember which caseworker it was.
Okay. And then they also made reference to your visits. They're making claims that during your in-person parenting time with your child that you were on the phone a majority of the time, essentially ignoring him. Is that true?
That's not true. I have videos of me interacting with my son. I do take pictures with my son. I do let him talk to his father if his father cannot make it. But other than me being on my phone, that is false. And I have pictures and videos to prove.
Okay. There's also made reference to services being offered to you in relation to, sounds like essentially training for for the special needs that your child has. Do you recall being offered those services?
No, yeah, I signed an early on paper, but prior to my son coming into care, he was actually in early on. I had him in early on first. And I did sign the paper. That's the only service she told me about. But I think she did give me a paper about physical therapy. I'm not allowed to attend to go to their home for me to participate in that. So I'm not sure how I was supposed to attend any of those classes. I asked about doctor's appointments and why I'm not the one that could be going, and one of the other parents could sit out in the car or something while I be in there with him. But there's never a time for me to be there with my son during any doctor's appointments or anything.
Did they even give you information regarding any of his appointments, giving you that opportunity to attend?
There's never an opportunity for me to attend. It's always their foster mom that they say, hold on, I have a message here about a doctor's appointment in Grand Rapids the day before. I asked for them to keep me updated. She did not. I had to text her asking, is he still coughing? Because, and his temperature, because she didn't state any of that to me. She just said that he is running a low-grade fever and has a cold.
Okay. In regards to your housing, do you currently have housing?
I do.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, has this current caseworker been over to view your residence?
She has never been to my residence.
Okay. Is she aware that you have housing?
I'm sure she is. I'm not homeless.
Okay. Has she ever asked to actually come over to view your residence?
I believe we did set up something. I want to say months ago. I don't remember what happened. She just, it wasn't a visit. It was no home visit.
Okay. And they also make reference to employment. Are you currently employed?
Yes, I've been employed before the pandemic.
Where were you employed at?
Angel Mind Healthcare. I stated this and gave information to them multiple times.
Did you remember giving this current worker information regarding your employment?
I'm not sure. I really don't see this caseworker a lot. I don't believe it was her. I believe it was one prior to her.
Okay. In the event the court decides it's not going to terminate your parental rights and does not find it in your child's best interest, do you have any hesitation in getting involved with a service program to complete it, to have your child returned to you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel that you're capable of managing your time and balancing all these different balls in the air, so to speak, with services and your work and otherwise your life, to be able to properly participate in the service program and benefit from it?
Yes. I was just having car troubles back in that's why I was having trouble getting to services, because I was depending on my mother. She also has a life and other kids to attend to, so it was just car trouble. Now I have a vehicle of my own, so okay. I'm able to do a lot more.
Okay. Would you like the court to give you that opportunity?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
No questions.
Okay, any, Ms. McCluskey, questions for the witness?
No questions. Thank you.
And I'm assuming none from Mr. Brown. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any further witnesses? Mr. Kelly?
No, Your Honor. That would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
No, thank you, Judge.
And any presentation, Ms. McCluskey?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any rebuttal, Mr. Way?
No, Your Honor.
I guess we're ready for arguments then. Go ahead, Mr. Way.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm asking the court to terminate the parental rights of both the mother and the father. Looking back at the initial petition, there are some pretty serious allegations in there regarding just general safety and disposition. I believe occurred in early to mid-June, so we're over 6 months in, and we've made minimal progress even beginning services. Parenting classes, counseling, drug screens, it's just not happening. And, you know, with Ms. Green's maybe at least like set up a couple appointments or canceled them at least. But we have a history with her in a different county of her not complying with a service plan, which I think is important when the court is judging giving her a reasonable time considering the child's ages. We have that history of a prior termination that was upheld by the Court of Appeals. With Mr. Lafitte, for whatever reason it may be, there just hasn't been any participation at all. I know Mr. Brown referred to a potential head injury. You know, there's no testimony to that effect. I've seen no documentation to that effect. So I don't think that the court can consider that in terms of reasonable efforts. There's no real bond with Doris and his parents. There's a significant bond between him and his placement. So I also believe termination is in the best interest of Doris, and I would ask that the court grant the request. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Your Honor, my client's 19 years old. This is her second child. I guess putting yourself in her position, I'm not sure many 19-year-olds can truly survive out on their own like she has been, then throw on top of it service plans that she has to deal with and otherwise try to comply with in some way, shape, or form. She has put forth the effort. I think given her age, given what you're looking at doing ultimately here, I think a continued opportunity for her would be appropriate at this stage of the proceedings. We have services that are being provided for that are somewhat restricted because of the COVID matter that's going on now. For example, the special needs services for her child. I'm not sure how well you're going to benefit from those if you can't do it hands-on and in person, which essentially was admitted to. Her parenting classes, it would seem like those would be better, but be beneficial for her if they were geared towards a child with special needs. But it sounds like they're the typical parenting classes you would ultimately get. She participated with Lifeways. They said she didn't need services. Parenting time, you heard from her. She interacted with her child. Pictures, a 19-year-old on their phone taking pictures. What a shock. That never happens. Of course, I'm being facetious to Your Honor, but it's not out of the question, out of the realm of behavior for a young lady of that age. And again, she's a young parent and wants to have pictures of her children. She has employment and she has housing that's just not been checked into. So I don't think all the boxes have been checked here, Your Honor, for the court to proceed today. And I don't think it's in the child's best interest. So I'd request of the court to deny the request for termination and put this back on the calendar with continued efforts towards reunification. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Judge, I would agree with Mr. Kelly. There just hasn't been continuity in this case, which is short-lived. This is a short-lived case, and we've had, from my understanding, 3 workers already on this case. That does not give a continuity of care for the parents. It kind of puts them behind in doing a service plan. Further, with regard to my client, if Mr. Way asked that the court take judicial notice of this case file, I recall from the beginning of this case that there were facts that were put in the file that Mr. Lafitte suffered a traumatic brain injury from a gunshot wound. I don't think that, considering the age, that the effort has been put forth to really ask these parents. When I asked the caseworker, did you further inquire, well, where do you live? It really wasn't dug into, and I don't think he really understood the process in this. I'm asking again for another period of time, and I would ask the court to lecture Mr. Lafitte that if you want an opportunity to have your child, that yes, this caseworker can be all up in your life to figure out whether you're even capable to parent the child. Because of the lack of continuity in this case, numerous caseworkers, I don't really think both of them have been given a fair chance to really know what they were supposed to do and how they were supposed to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McCluskey?
Your Honor, I believe I heard Mr. Brown say, mention that this was a short-lived case or something similar. And it's my understanding the child has been with current placement since last December. So that is a year. As for the turnover in caseworkers, unfortunately, we see that quite frequently. That doesn't absolve the parents from the responsibility of engaging in services. The father has done nothing. Mother has done very little. And there was a termination shortly, right at approximately around the same time as Doris was removed from their care. There was a termination on mom's older child. So this is not her first go round. She knows how to engage in, she doesn't know how to engage in services. It's my understanding she did not in the previous case either, but this is not new to her. This process is not new. And I don't think she can claim ignorance as to what was expected of her. I know that these parents are young and I have empathy for that, but if you're old enough to have a child, you're old enough to take care of that child and engage in services and cooperate with the caseworkers. And I just don't see that has happened. I know this placement, I have no concerns. In fact, it's a wonderful placement. Obviously the half sibling who's just now 3 is in this placement. They have gone above and beyond to meet all of Doris's medical needs. And he was very developmentally delayed when he came into their care and now is excelling in their care. So I think this is just the agency has more than met their burden. And I would support termination. And I think it's in the child's best interest to be adopted in the current placement. Thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Way?
Just briefly, Your Honor, it's been mentioned a couple times that there's been a slew of caseworkers. I just looked through my file. Ms. Yuko was the author of the original dispositional report back in, it's dated late May. So the entire time the parents have been required to do services, they've had one caseworker. I understand mom's probably had multiple caseworkers because she's had other cases. Certainly there was a CPS worker. That's the case in every case. But from the time of disposition to now, they've had exactly one foster care worker. So I don't think that argument holds weight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the court adjudicated this matter as to both parents based on a original petition. Let me find it. That were concerns about Ms. Green engaging in sex trafficking with a minor child while her own minor child was present, not complying with court orders for her older child, and not engaging in services for that child. That child was removed from her care back in May of 2018 with allegations of improper supervision and criminality, substance abuse, associating with Doris Lafitte, who was identified as a member of a gang, the Fifth Ward gang. She was photographed pointing a gun well, wait a minute. Mr. Lafitte was photographed pointing a gun at the camera. Ms. Green was also under juvenile court jurisdiction for dangerous weapons and disorderly person, a number of concerns that existed that were ongoing from that 2018 case for the other child. And that child, whose name is Anijah, ultimately, mom's parental rights were terminated. The current concerns included improper supervision, trafficking, I'm looking down the list. Doris himself was delayed, extremely small for his age. Some special health concerns noted. Lack of obtaining and maintaining housing, criminality, lack of stable employment, lack of financial stability. Lots of missed visits with that other child. Many no-shows for drug screens. Clearly, a number of conditions that existed in this home and concerns about mom's ability to parent. Mr. Green, primarily the allegations had to do with his own criminality. So then we fast forward to disposition. At disposition, this court ordered, let me find the order. Let's see. For mom's disposition, which occurred on May 6th, mom was ordered to maintain appropriate employment and income, participate in the services that were identified in the case service plan, demonstrate progress timely, submit to weekly random drug screens, and to a psychological evaluation. And I do understand that there was an issue with the psych eval based on the time period and the age at the time, but there were some recommendations made for services in that plan. As to Mr. Lafitte, disposition occurred a little later. Looks like on June 2nd. And he was ordered to comply and benefit from parenting classes, submit to psychological evaluation and drug screens, and to be in contact with the worker. So we hear today regarding each parent's participation in their respective service plans. We'll deal with the mother first. She was referred for individual counseling through Child and Family Charities. She started counseling, went to 3 scheduled appointments, showed up 2 times when she didn't have an appointment scheduled, and then failed to show for the scheduled appointments after that. In July, she was referred to counseling with Neil Perry through Child and Family Charities. Had an appointment to meet with him, did not attend the intake session, had another appointment scheduled. Does not appear from the testimony today that she ever did, in fact, engage in any counseling with Mr. Perry. Was scheduled for parenting classes, but has provided no evidence that she either participated in or completed parenting classes, and certainly because she didn't, no indication that she demonstrated any improvement. She was, and those parenting classes, were in the Ingham County case, not this particular one. In one of those cases, one of those parenting classes, she was terminated due to lack of participation, missed visits, incomplete assignments. Level of participation was poor, missed several visits, stating she was sick and hospitalized, but didn't provide any verification of that. Referred in June of 2018 through Stepping Up Through Change Teen Parenting Program. Referred in June of 2019 to CMH Maternal Infant Health Program. April of 2020, referred to Lifeways for services and did not attend. Now I have mother's testimony. She was told she didn't qualify for services, claims that they gave her a letter to that effect, but I don't see any letter in the file. I don't see any exhibit indicating that. Referred in July of 2020 to Family Service and Children Aids for parenting classes. We got a report that she attended an intake on July 29th, but did not return to take the parenting classes. The visits that she attends, she spends most of her time on the phone, and clearly the testimony did not indicate that she was simply taking pictures. That would be understandable, although it is concerning that she would spend more time worried about pictures of her child than she would with attending to the child's needs. The vast majority of the parenting time was actually spent on her phone, not merely taking pictures. Regarding substance abuse, she was 75 times that she was supposed to show up for drug screening. 75 times that she failed to show. 6 times she tested negative, and 5 times she tested positive for THC. No drug screens. And that was back in the Ingham County case, June 19 through December 2019. And then from June to 2020 to November, in this current case, she no-showed for 67 screens at a 0% compliance rate for call-ins. Housing concerns still remain. She has not responded or made her home available for inspection. The concern still exists today as to whether or not she has stable housing, although that is not the court's primary concern. Her own financial stability is in question. But the biggest concern as to mom is her engagement in the specific services, her lack of engagement in parenting time, and her non-compliance with the screening that was ordered. With respect to Mr. Lafitte, he was offered a parenting time by a foster care worker in the beginning of this year, did not attend. He asked for a parenting time on February 3rd. It's unclear. He was scheduled for Zoom parenting time in April. I'm sorry. Did not attend. He did attend one Zoom parenting time around the beginning of June. And during that session, it did not appear that DeReese Jr. was even aware of who he is. That's not surprising for a dad that's had virtually no contact with his child. In July, his parenting time was suspended until he would make contact with the foster care worker. Between June and September of 2020, he made no contact with the foster care worker. Contact was finally made in September, inviting him to a Zoom parenting time, which he did attend, but very little interaction with the child during that parenting time session. There are concerns of housing with Mr. Lafitte. He's never identified a home or provided the agency with an address for a home that could even be inspected to determine whether or not it's suitable for a child. He failed to provide the agency with any evidence of proof of income or employment. Did not make himself available for a psychological exam. Frankly, has had very, very little evidence of involvement or a desire to remain a father to his child. I realize these are young parents, but that doesn't excuse their parenting or lack of parenting. There's virtually no effort by either parent to get engaged in a service plan in a serious way. Even as of today's date, we're not talking about a couple of parents who are late to the game and just now getting involved. We're talking about parents who a full year after the removal of the child still have not engaged in any meaningful way to address the concerns that brought this child into care. For that reason, as to both parents, I do find that statutory grounds for termination have been met with testimony and evidence that is clear and convincing. 182 days or more have elapsed since the issuance of an initial dispositional order. conditions that led to adjudication continue to exist, there's no reasonable likelihood they can be rectified in a reasonable period of time, given the child's age. These parents have failed to provide proper care and custody, and there's no evidence of a reasonable expectation that they would be able to do so within a reasonable time. In the mother's case, parental rights to another sibling were terminated due to serious and chronic neglect, and the parent, in this case, the mother, failed to rectify the conditions that led to that prior termination. And finally, there's a reasonable likelihood based on conduct or capacity of both parents that the child would be harmed if returned to the home of either parent. With respect to best interest, this child deserves permanency and finality. He's in a very good home with a half sibling, with foster parents who have been extremely attentive to his needs, who are able and willing to provide him with the permanency that he deserves. So I do find that termination is also in Doris's best interest. I need to advise the parents of their rights. And if you give me just a moment. You each have the right within 14 days of today's date to appeal the termination of your parental rights directly to the Court of Appeals of the State of Michigan. You also have the right within that same time period to file a motion for rehearing. An attorney for rehearing and appeal purposes will be appointed for you if you cannot afford one and you request one. You will be sent an advice of rights form that tells you how you can request appointment of that attorney. Make sure you fill that out and get it back into the court within that 14-day period. If the court appoints an attorney to perfect your appeal, which I certainly will if you request one, I will provide that attorney with the necessary transcripts and records that he will need to prosecute the appeal. In addition to these rehearing and appeal rights, you also have the right to control the release of identifying information about yourself under the adoption laws of the state of Michigan. You may file with the Central Adoption Registry of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services at any time a form called Parents Consent/Denial to release information to adult adoptee. And with that form, which you can get from any circuit court or any office of the Department of Health and Human Services, you can consent to or deny the release of identifying information about yourself. That includes your name at the time of termination of your parental rights and your most recent name and address on file with the Central Adoption Registry. You can use that form at any time you change your mind about whether you want to consent to or deny the release of identifying information about yourself. Do either of you parents have any questions about the rights that I just informed you of? Mr. Lafitte? Lafitte, I'm sorry.
Your Honor, I wonder if we can't verify addresses too. I know we had to do that after the fact on this morning's hearing.
Certainly. Mr. Lafitte, did you have any questions about the rights that I advised you of?
Yeah, so what is like the first step of getting him? Like what am I supposed to do? Because when they have dates and visits, I be working. I work 7 days out the week. From 7:30 to 6:30. So I really don't like when they have parenting time, I don't have time to make it because I be working.
Mr. Lafitte, can you give us a current address, please?
906 East Damon.
I know 6, East Damon. And where is that?
Flint, Michigan,
Flint,
48504.
Michigan,
48504.
504. Thank you. And do we have a current address for Ms. Green? Ms. Hukel, I've asked her to unmute her phone, but she hasn't done it yet. Do you have a current address for her?
I believe the one we have in the system is the 3.
I have an address I have the same address since 2018. I said I had to work at 3:00, so I'm at work, so I can't barely talk. I can listen though.
So the address we have is the correct one. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll make sure this advice of rights form gets sent to both parents. And if you wish to pursue an appeal, you just need to fill out the form, return it to the court within 14 days, and we'll make sure that an attorney gets appointed for you. I'm going to set this matter for a post-term hearing, January 19th at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. That concludes our hearing today. Have a good day, everyone.
You too.